Hey guys, Hollow1 here. Welcome back to another video, and today we've got Lionel 6-28314. This is the Union Pacific Vision Line Genset, and it's got a bunch of issues with the smoke units that I'm going to be trying to fix today. So first, what exactly is this thing? The Genset was supposed to be a next-gen switcher. I can't remember who built it, but basically, when switchers do switching, they usually have one big prime mover and then the generator that creates the electricity that powers the wheels, because trains are electric, they're diesel electric. Now, sometimes you'll see cow and calf setups or slug units, and basically what those are is it's just a switcher frame or a frame of another locomotive, and it just has the traction motors in the wheel sets, and then it's got a big concrete block on top of it for weight. And the reason that those exist is because usually switchers generate more power than they use in low-speed heavy switching, and those additional powered wheels not only allow the train to pull, or the switcher to pull more, but it also fully utilizes the power that the switcher is generating. And because of this fact that switchers generate more power than they need, they are honestly pretty fuel inefficient for their job. So this engine attempted to fix that by replacing the single big prime mover with 3 smaller generators. Now those generators would fire up the more load that you need. So you'd always have one running unless it was sitting for a while, and then it would go into sleep mode, which this engine actually duplicates. At low power, you'd have 1 generator running. Moderate power, you've got 2 generators running. And then if you really need power, you get 3 generators running. And the idea behind this is fuel savings. And while I believe these engines did save on fuel, they didn't save on maintenance, and that's why you don't really see them a bunch. This engine is the Lionel Vision Line Genset from, I think, 2009. And it duplicates a lot of the really cool features about those gensets. It has the sleep mode, it has the generators that fire up, and it's got the little flapper things on the top of the smokestacks, which are neat. But with this particular engine, it's supposed to always have 1 smoke unit running, I think, unless it's in sleep mode. And then as you increase to, I think it's like speed stat maybe 10 or so, the second generator kicks on, and then I can't remember what the one is for the third generator. But it does actually fire up the smoke units accordingly, and it makes the sounds to recreate that. This engine doesn't, though. This engine, the first generator and the second generator work just fine. The third generator is for some reason linked to the whistle. So this engine has whistle steam or horn steam for some reason. Couldn't tell you why, but I guess we're going to find out. So let's start by cracking this thing open. Actually, first, I got to get better at this. I'm going to show you guys the current state. So let's fire it up here. You can see the middle smoke unit comes on. If I blow the horn, you can see the stack. So, yeah, that's neat. It does have road name and road number specific dialogue, which is pretty cool.
2701 is coupled up. Air test complete. Am I clear, over? Yes, 2701. You can take the lead. Over. Copy, I got clearance. Pull 2701 out.
What's funny about it is that because this engine is 2009, this was like the end of the road name and road number specific dialogue in every engine. So, yeah, kind of like, I don't want to say is the last of that era was this engine, because I think they lasted a little longer. You may have to correct me on that one, but yeah. So you can hear it going to sleep currently. So it just kind of sits like this until if I hit 3 to idle it up. Which is pretty neat. And then if I continue to idle it up to notch 3, notch 4, 5. I can't tell if this smoke unit's running or not. It looks like it's trying to. It was running when I was testing this prior. That's notch 8. You can see the third one's still not open, second one's trying, and the first one's just still running strong. But, yeah, so I couldn't tell you why it's doing that. So now we get to crack this thing open and see what the insides look like. Alright, let's see if I can figure out how to take this thing apart. I'm gonna take the stacks off so I don't break them in my cradle here. Set them off to the side. Alrighty. Let's see here. Looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws as normal. So let's take these out. These are not tight at all. So I have two guesses for what's going on here. The first one is sort of backed up by these loose screws. I think somebody has been in here and was playing with stuff, and probably mixed up some of the wires. The other option is the furthest forward smoke unit in this engine was outputting a crazy amount of smoke when I first started it up. And I'm wondering if the person that owned this previously didn't realize that the smoke units were supposed to turn on progressively and just kept dumping smoke fluid into them, thinking that they were all supposed to be on, and they were trying to figure out why they couldn't get smoke out of it, and flooded the smoke unit and fried some of the electronics. So let's, with those screws out, oh, it's got fixed pilots. I did not realize that. Okay. That's actually really cool. For those of you who are not into O-scale, the reason that that is impressive is because most of the time our pilots are attached to the trucks of the whatever locomotive it is. And the reason for that is to let them take tighter curves. So, I'm sure it's probably... Oh yeah, what am I doing? I can just... Hold on. Temporary pause while I put this back together. I hate these little E-rings. There are screws at the base of these couplers that should probably make this a heck of a lot easier to remove. That's one, and that's gone. I'll find it later. Yeah, okay, sweet. That makes that easy. Let me do that on the back. And that's how I actually got the second one. I really have no idea where that other one went. It might be in the panel on the side here, but we'll find it in a second. Okay. And with those off... Oh, hey. Well, that answers that question. Okay. Yeah. Neat. Let me bring you guys in and show you exactly what I'm looking at. Also, just noticed I did this the hard way. There are two screws here, and this bottom plate comes off, and then you don't have to remove the couplers. So, whoops. I'll probably flip that around at some point. So this is what we're looking at. There are 3 smoke units. This is the one that's currently doing the whistle steam thing. And then these two, this one I know works just fine. This one was being finicky. It was working, and then today it wasn't. These are, interestingly, very similar to the modular board system. Like, this is old school tech, which I think is pretty cool. Here's your motor driver board. One of these is probably rail sounds, and I think this is probably the R4LC or R2LC? Or no, this is the radio receiver board. So I don't know. One of these I don't know what it is. One of them has to be rail sounds, and I'll figure out what the other one is later. It does have the optical encoder ring mounted to the rear truck. There is no front motor in this. These front wheels free spin, and that is because the cab is detailed and they couldn't fit a motor up here. So, neat. I think these things have pretty good pulling power with just the one motor though, so it should be fine. But yeah, I'm going to start unplugging stuff, figuring out what everything does, and I'll get back to you guys with what I learn. Yeah, somebody's definitely been in here. Alright, let me mess around. I'll see what I find. Okay, so I think I got the boards figured out. So rail sounds power board, rail sounds board, motor driver, radio receiver. This is just a bus board for power distribution up to the smoke unit control board, and then the individual smoke units. So, and yeah, there's a transistor here just soldered directly into a JST connector, which is peak. There are so many wires in this thing. Holy cow. So what I need to do is I need to find the motor or the wire, one of the many wires up here that is triggering the motor for this fan-driven smoke unit, figure out where that's going, because that's currently linked to the whistle input, which is wrong. And then I need to repin it and figure out what it's actually supposed to go to, so that it triggers when you give it enough throttle. So this is going to be fun. Just found another neat thing. I was tracing out the antenna wire, and they come up here, and here these handrails are the antenna, because it's got a die-cast shell, so you can't just run the antenna on the top. That's really cool. So yeah, if you own one of these, be careful of that specific handrail and its identical twin on the other side. The outer one, fine. You can break that one off. The inner one, don't do that. So I'm making my wiring diagram here, and I found two things that are kind of interesting. One, there's two plugs up here that are labeled third and ground. Both of them are. And I continuity checked it, and third goes to chassis ground, and ground goes to the third rail pickup. Why? I'm not even kidding either. Like, I wish I was joking, but I'm going to see if I can do this. If I put one lead on chassis ground, I'm just going to use this screw, and I put the other lead on the third rail, for both of them. Yeah, that's fun. And then I'm not even going to try and do the third rail, because that would be a pain in the neck with one hand. But yeah, so for some reason, third, which you can see there, the pin on the left, which is the one I was testing, is directly to chassis ground, and ground is to third rail. So yeah, that's interesting. The other thing is this little 4-pin connector down here, which is this bottom 4-pin, which I believe is SW1, SW2, SW3, and ground. You can kind of see there, but you can see it a lot better up here. See that shiny metal? That is a pin that is pulled out of this socket, and that's SW2, which I believe is I need to double check, but I think it's this front smoke unit. Or it's this middle one. If it's the middle one, I'm really confused, because that seemed to work just fine. But like the way that I'm doing my numbering is SMK3, 2, and 1, and I've held that true all the way through to wherever the heck it is here. And that feeds into these. So I'm just going to continuity check that real quick. But yeah, I think I'm just going to plug that pin back in, put it on the track, and see what it does. So that SW connection is the switch, go figure. I'm assuming it's ground reference because it's got ground labeled on it, but it just goes right here to the smoke on off switch. So that pin being pulled out probably means that whatever smoke unit that's connected to, which I'm assuming SW2 is connected to smoke unit 2, was being commanded off. But smoke unit 2 is the middle one that you saw running. So riddle me that one. The only thing I can think of is that that was unplugged from the factory. This being wired backwards blew up smoke units 1 and 3. So they wired smoke unit 1 to go to the whistle, which I still haven't figured out how they've done that yet. I haven't gotten that far. And smoke unit 3 is cooked. But I have footage of smoke unit 3 running. I don't know. We're gonna put it on the track and see what it does. So I've got everything plugged back in, and the shell is just kind of sitting on top. If I fire it up here, well, it's a more promising sign for generator 1. Yeah, it feels hot. I think it is trying to do something. It shouldn't be. Right now it should be off. It shouldn't be doing anything. But it seems like it's trying to do something. Yeah, and I still have my horn actuated steam. Okay, well, problem still exists. Yeah, I guess I'm just gonna keep digging with this wiring and see what else I can find. I am very intrigued by the flipped ground and third rail, though, and I'm almost tempted to pull out that second genset and see if it has the same backwards wiring. But that would probably be a tomorrow problem. So I'm just gonna give this thing another glance over tonight and probably call it and go to bed because I have to work tomorrow. So sweet. I'll see you guys when I see you. Okay, so tomorrow is now today. I did call Lionel and told them about the whole issue here, and they sent me a whole wiring diagram for this engine, which is really convenient. So I can go through and I can actually validate everything and make sure it's correct. Speaking of validation, obviously the area of interest for us was this J1 and J6 terminal on this smoke unit control board here that are labeled ground and third. So on electronic boards, it's these connectors, that connector there and that connector there that are labeled third and ground. So the square pin is pin 1. That's just how connectors are done. And pin 1 is supposed to be wired to ground, which matches with the labels on the boards. But if you remember yesterday, they're backwards. So third rail is actually going to the ground. Locomotive's on the track. I got the shell really far on, and then I realized that the smoke units are in the shell, so it doesn't need to be pressed on all the way. Anyway. Okay, I got smoke units 3 and 2 running full tilt, and 1's not doing anything. Let's fire it up. I don't see any smoke, nor am I feeling warm air. It's just kind of cold. That's still not working. Let's, yeah, nope. Okay, how about if I blow the horn? Alright, so it doesn't have whistle steam anymore, which is nice. But it also still doesn't work. Fun. I'm gonna look through the rest of that wiring diagram that Lionel sent and see if I can find anything else that's wired weird. Because if that was backwards, I don't even want to know what else could be messed up in this thing, but let's see if we can find out. So I went through every connection on the shell and the frame, and everything lines up with the wiring diagram that Lionel sent me. Which means that the problems that remain are due to boards being faulty, not bad wiring. So I'm going to take a stab and say that the ground and third rail being flipped on this board blew it up, and that's why the smoke units aren't working correctly. So that's probably the board I've got to replace. I do have another Genset that also has smoke unit issues, so before I go ahead and place an order, I'm going to crack that one open and see if it's got the same flipped lead issue. That one's interesting because the smoke units work sometimes. I'll explain more when I get it out. But I think for now, I'm just going to plug everything back together and put the shell back on and call it good for this locomotive. Crack open that other one, take a look at it, and then once I figure out what's wrong with that one, then I'll place the order and I can open these up in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or so when I actually get the parts back. So let's go put this back together and grab that other engine. So believe it or not, this is a different engine. Yeah, it's identical, but this one, powered up here, you can see the third generator comes on, which I'm pretty sure is wrong. It should be the second generator. If you idle it up, it kicks on the third or the second generator, and then it dies. And I can't reset it to make the smoke unit come back. The only thing I can do, so if I power it up again here, engine 2.7, you can see it doesn't come back to life. What I can do is open up the side panel, put it in program, power on the track, engine 2.7 set, and you can see the smoke unit came back on. Power it down, flip the switch, flip it back up, put it back on, and it stops working. So, and yes, I know I didn't give the capacitors time to discharge when I just did the quick demo, but that's what it does. So let's do the same thing we did with the other one. Let's take it apart and verify all the wiring, make sure the wiring's good, and if the wiring's not good, figure out what board is possibly blown up. Correction, if the wiring is good, then we figure out what board's blown up. Although I guess if the wiring is bad, that's a pretty easy way to figure out which one is blown up. So, alrighty, let's, without further ado, take this guy apart. So that other one wasn't entirely a fluke. You can see it's black on the left, gray on the right. And you can see that down there says third and ground. So these are also backwards, which is interesting. Also, sure. The wiring is honestly a lot neater in this engine than it is in the other one. But I don't see anything wrong up here in the shell for any of these smoke units. Everything looks connected, and the wiring checks out. So yeah, I'm this board might also just be blown up because it's backwards. I'm not sure, but we'll flip it around and reconnect it and see what it does. So it seems to cycle through them, which may actually be correct to the prototype, because it wouldn't make sense to always have one generator, or like generator 1, for example. It wouldn't make sense to always have that one running while the engine's idling, and then fire up the generators 2 and 3 as you increase power, because generator 1's going to wear out faster. So I'm wondering if the switching and cycling between generators is actually prototypical. It probably says it in the owner's manual. I should probably read it. But I'm just going to say that that's the way it's supposed to operate. And I think the control board is actually good. Which means the smoke units are probably what's bad. Or at least this front smoke unit. So I'm going to move some plugs around again. And I want to see if I plug this wire into a smoke unit that I know works, does it break the whole thing? So let's see what that does. Alrighty, let's fire it up, see what it does. Nothing. Still nothing. Still nothing. So yeah, I think that smoke unit's bad. Let's try and pull it out here and see if we can take a closer look at it, figure out what exactly is wrong with it. Alright, so I think I've got the problem. I'm going to show you guys. So first, actually, let me do one of these. Let me reset my little light so you guys can see. So if I measure across the resistor, I get 8 ohms on the front unit. I get 8 ohms on the second unit, and I get 8 ohms on this third unit. I don't know why the resistance was going up so high there. Let me actually align my leads. There you go, 8 ohms. If I go down the motors now, I get 16 ohms on the front, or the rearmost motor. I get 10.6 ohms on the middle motor. And if I go across this motor, there you go, I get 0.4. So I'm going to say that is our problem. I don't think that motor should be that weak. And I can test it by pulling the motor out of one of these other smoke units, putting it in here, and seeing if this... So I took the rear smoke unit out of the other genset and I put it in the front smoke unit spot in this genset. So the rear smoke unit in the other one is now the bad smoke unit, which I did double check all the motors and the resistors in those smoke units, and they all check out. They're about 10 ohms or so for the motor and about 8 ohms for all of the resistors, which means that this smoke unit theoretically should work because it's got 10 ohms across the motor and 8 ohms across the resistor. So let's fire it up and see what it does. Immediately, right off the bat, we got the front smoke unit. Alright. Let's idle it up. Got the rear. One more. And we got all three. Let's go. We have a fully working genset. Oh, that's incredible. Okay. So, that actually wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I am really glad the board is okay in this engine. So, I still need to go ahead and I need to get the board for the other engine. And I now need to get a smoke unit fan motor. And then once I've got those parts, we can chuck them in, and hopefully that other one runs just as good as this one does. So, very nice. I am incredibly pleased with that. There's a very aggressive buzzing noise that goes on when this engine's just idling. Not sure why that is, but yeah. So anyway, sweet. So let's pack this up and order some parts. Alright guys, well you get a bundle. This is Lionel 6-28323. This is the Norfolk Southern Vision Line Genset from 2009. They offered them in two road names, if I remember correctly. They offered the UP 2701 and they offered the NS number 300. So my friend also has this, and the smoke units don't work in it. So I'll show you guys what's going on. When I got it, the smoke unit switch was actually set to off, so I was like, oh yeah, easy, simple as that. No, not quite. So this one's programmed to engine 1. You can see off the bat, I've got no smoke units. If I idle it up, nothing starts up. And for the third cycle, nothing starts up. So, goodness, that's loud. Okay, I'm going to turn that volume down a little bit. And we're going to take this apart. You can also see that this panel needs to get fixed. One of the brake cylinders came off when I took this out of the box. I need to look at the cab roof to make sure none of the lights are flickering, and I need to verify forward and reverse lights and also couplers, but I guess I can do couplers right now. Yep, got both. Okay. Couplers are good. Let's look at lights, and then I'm going to take the shell off, and we're going to see the inside of a third Genset. So now that I've seen the inside of 3 of these things, I think I can say that consistency was not the name of the game when they built these. This is not the black plate that's normally there. It was held on by a piece of gaff tape instead of electrical tape that has since disintegrated. The antenna wire doesn't have a JST connector at the end of it. It's a pin that you just put onto the antenna, which I think is much nicer. The bundling is also completely different. And getting these plugs out was next to impossible. So that was fun. Yeah, I'm actually gonna check. Third is on the left, ground is on the right, because I couldn't remember. And yep, that's also wired backwards. Huh. I don't know. Interesting. But yeah, so I'm going to start measuring out these smoke units, looking for those resistances that I found yesterday when I was working on the UP, 10 ohms for the motor, or about, and 8 ohms for the resistors. Just verify that all of those are correct. I know that this has a new smoke unit control board in it, so I don't think that's the problem, because unless it came bad, it should be fine. So I'm hoping that all these smoke units are bad, because if all the smoke units are good and the board has just been replaced, then I'm going to be out of ideas and going to have to start troubleshooting some more stuff. Okay, so I just tested all the smoke units here. For the motors, for the rear motor, I got 10 ohms, middle motor, I got 10, and the front motor, I got 7, which is fine. For the resistors, I got 8.1, like 8.2, and this one is dead. Couldn't get a reading. I pulled the plug out to make sure it wasn't just bad contacts. And yeah, I'm getting OL for that resistor, which means that resistor is cooked. So, neat. I'm going to continuity check it actually, just to see if it's shorted, because if it's shorted, that could be what's telling the smoke unit control board not to do anything, because the heating elements always run in these smoke units. Even if the fans aren't running, the heating units are. So, yeah. So if that's shorted, there's a problem. If it's not shorted, then it goes back to that. So I know you guys really aren't going to be able to see much of anything, but I will pull out that plug, switch my multimeter to continuity. One probe on one lead, and I'm not getting continuity across it. Oh, hold on. Yes, I am. That's interesting. Why is it intermittent? I'm gonna pull this smoke unit out so I can get a better grip on it. So here's our smoke unit. 691 SMK1-BOO. Pretty standard smoke unit. It's just very low profile, which is nice. I'm gonna take off this plastic cover so that I can get a better point to the leads. The plastic cover, I think, is there to protect it from the die-cast frame. So let's test between smoke plus and smoke minus. And I'm not getting anything. If I go back to resistance, I'm also getting no resistance. Okay. So, I don't think that's our problem. But, you know, couldn't hurt to be sure, so let's just take apart everything and see what the inside of this looks like. You know what? Is that the motor? No, it is not. It's a really stiff screw that also doesn't want to come out. Is it? I think it's like glued shut. Interesting. Alright, give me some time to pry at this a little bit, and I'm going to see if I can get it apart. Well, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this smoke unit is cooked. Literally. All the batting in there is black. This resistor is welded to this this frame here. Like, cannot get it out. That's the... Oh, well, that other wire came off finally. So now I can show you guys. Yeah, so this is done. So I need a new one of these metal containers, and I need a new resistor, and I need new batting. I think the PCB is fine. The motor tested okay. But yeah, that is something else. So, and the wire is obviously broken in there too, so that's neat. But yeah, so I'm gonna put the shell back on with the smoke unit out. I want to see if it has that same failsafe that the other one had, where it detected that because the smoke unit or this resistor is fried, it just didn't turn on. So maybe the other two work okay, and it's just this one was causing the problem. I'm not going to flip the power leads, because if this is the third one that has them backwards, that might be the way it's supposed to be. Although, that could also be what fried this. I don't know. It's got a rectifier on it. It should be... You know what? I'll flip them anyway. Alright, I put the smokestacks back in the front too, because there is no third, so it doesn't matter. Let's see here. Engine 1. Still nothing. If I idle it up. Still nothing. And nothing. Okay. Still does not work. So, that's a bit of a bummer. I am tempted to plug this shell into one of the UP engines to see if, just to verify that the smoke units aren't the problem. Because if the smoke units aren't the problem, then there are two possibilities. Either the smoke unit control board got blown up by this catastrophe, and the good board that they just put in it is already fried, or it's something else with another one of the boards. So I think let's start with the easy thing, which is just let's put this shell on a different locomotive, and then we'll start digging into the frame. Well, this is amusing. I have the NS shell on the Union Pacific frame. This is the one that I got fully functioning, also off camera. I fixed the headlight. So the number board had a flickering light on the one UP engine, so I fixed that. And then one of the headlights was a little dim on the other UP engine, so I fixed that. And now we're here. So let's see. This should be programmed to 27. Alright. That smoke unit's on. And if I idle it up... Yep, second one kicked on. And then third one doesn't have a smoke unit. So, that's cool. So the smoke units that are in here are good. Which means that the smoke unit control board in the NS frame or some other board is blown. So now I get to dig through that and see if I can figure out which of the boards is bad. So not much really goes into the smoke unit control board except for 5-volt ground, track center rail, and track ground. So I figure if I can verify that the rail sound serial data that comes in through this connector here, the 3-pin that's in there, if that signal is being sent to the board, then it's the board that's bad, because I can very easily check 5-volt power, I can very easily check track power, and if I'm getting signal, that means that it is receiving commands, it's just not doing anything with them. So I have my oscilloscope here set up, referenced to the 5-volt ground, which is, I believe, DC ground, or DC common. And I have my positive hooked up to the RS signal, and I'm just looking on my oscilloscope here for any amount of a signal when I power this up. I'll put it in neutral, and it does look like we have a bit of a signal here. So if I pull this down a little bit, yeah, so we do have an RS signal coming in. This oscilloscope just isn't good enough to read digital, digital serial data. It's okay with analog, but digital is just way too fast for this thing. I really need a better oscilloscope, but $20 works just fine for me to verify that it is getting a signal, so I don't think that is the problem, which means that this board is the one that's blown up. Also, just to make extra sure that the problem is not in the shell with any of the electronics, even though I did verify that the shell works on another unit, I am going to read the outputs from this board just to make sure that they're actually not what they're supposed to be. So ideally, all 3 fans, I'm going to put it in neutral and kick all 3 fans on. All 3 fans should be at 5 volts, and all of the resistors, I believe, should be at track power. So let's power it up here. Put it in neutral so I don't have a fan, or I don't have a motor running. I've got my multimeter set to DC. Motor 1, or fan motor 1 is 3.2. Fan motor 2 is 4.1 and dropping. Fan motor 3 is dropping to 0. Yeah, nothing there. For the resistors, smoke unit 1, I got nothing. Smoke unit 2, I also have nothing. And smoke unit 3, I have nothing. So yeah, so this is not trying to drive any amount of smoke unit. So that board's bad. So I'll add one of those to my parts order, and I'll be getting 2 of those and a smoke unit fan, and the core of another smoke unit. So, and that should bring all 3 of these back to life. But yeah, now we just have to wait for parts. Now, before you guys all go and roast me in the comments for, oh, well, if the heating elements are AC power, you measured it on DC power, you're not going to see anything because of the way alternating current works versus DC current. Yes, but in a previous shot that I had to delete because it was just bad, I did test them in AC and DC, and it was 0 in both instances. So it wasn't getting voltage to the resistors. I promise you that. Okay, we're back. I got parts. So I got 1 smoke unit board, 2 smoke unit board, the cup to, or the, oh, forgot there's screws in there. The reservoir chamber for the smoke unit, the new smoke unit element. I got some new batting, and a new fan motor. So now I need to not lose these little teeny tiny screws and start putting in new parts. So we're going to start with the Union Pacific because it's right here. And yeah, let's get into it. So this engine is fairly simple to work on for what it is. Unless you're trying to do this board. Holy cow, that was a struggle. So to get to the screw, so there's 2 screws that hold it in. Here's the old board. There's a screw that goes through the rectifier, and there's a screw that goes through the triac. Okay. You can't see the screw that goes through the triac because it's covered in a bundle of wires, and you can barely get to the screw that goes through the rectifier because it's covered in a bundle of wires. And when you pull this off, there's a bit of electrical tape that has no adhesive left that is supposed to go between the rectifier and the floor, so I somehow managed to get that back in. And then when you put on this bus board, you also make sure that you plug in everything to the board before you screw it to the panel, because plugging it in after you've screwed it in is next to impossible. Putting in this bus board, there are 2 screws that go into it. One of them is in, the other one is not, because the other one, the hole was drilled too big into this bottom plate, so it's not even tapped, and the screw is too short, which makes no frickin' sense. So that screw's not going back in, because if I do put it in and somebody turns this engine upside down at some point, that screw falls out, it can bridge something on one of these circuit boards and blow up the engine again. So that's not going back in. But getting that one screw back in, because there's a, like, I don't even know, 1/4-inch spacer that goes between this bus board and the actual bottom plate here, even though that bus board is grounded through the screw, it's a fight to get that screw back in, because you have to push a whole bunch of wires out of the way while trying to put pressure on a screwdriver, finding the hole, and then threading it in and being very careful not to cross-thread it, because if you cross-thread it, there's now no bolts holding this left, or no bolts holding this panel in. Oh my goodness. Let's put everything back together now, and fingers crossed this just works, because if it doesn't, I don't even know what I'm going to do at that point. Alright, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I already tested this, and I know what the outcome is. But, let's fire it up. See, I got my second smoke unit, as per normal. That's fine. Now, if I idle it up, you can see no new smoke units kick on, and idle it up to the last one, and nothing else kicks on. Also, this one is still doing its weird semi-fan thing. So I guess there's another problem in this engine that isn't the smoke unit control board, unless Lionel shipped me a bad part. Now, I only have one of these engines that works currently, so I'm going to take this board, put it in the working engine, and verify that this board is good. And if this board is good, then something else is amiss. I can also test the old board while I'm at it. Make sure that that's good, and odds are one of these are gonna end up getting shipped back to Lionel. But I don't know what to think about that. That's just, I feel so defeated. Okay, so I did a little bit of testing. I'm going to show you guys what I found. This is the shell from the locomotive that doesn't work on the frame from the locomotive that does work. So if I fire it up, it's illustrating my point. You can see none of the smoke units fired up. So let me reset it, fire it up. I get 1 smoke unit. If I idle it up, you can see it dies off. So from testing it, this 3rd smoke unit is causing the whole thing to shut down. Sounds very familiar. So I'm going to take a look at it, probably blow it apart, make sure that it's okay. But what that tells me is that the shell is probably fine with the exception of that smoke unit. And I still need to test each of these boards. So I'm going to do that for a while, and I'll probably see you guys in a couple hours when this is done troubleshooting all this. Alright, I'm slowly remembering things now. That's the shell that has the bad smoke unit fan. I thought that I had put it in the smoke unit that's, completely cooked over here. I did not do that. I just tested it, and that tested just fine. So that's a good motor, and that one has the bad motor. So need to replace that. That's why that wasn't working. Anyway, I am currently extracting the known good smoke unit board, and I'm going to treat this thing like gold because that may be the only good board that I have. So if I blow that up, I'm screwed. Alright, I've got the good chassis with the bad board with the semi-bad shell. And if I power it up, you can see the smoke unit turns on immediately, which means that that board is blown. So can confirm that board is bad, so it did need to be replaced. So I tested it, and guess what? Let's power it up, start it up. See how both of them flipped up for a second? This smoke unit is running. If I idle it up, nothing triggers. Idle it up again, nothing triggers. That brand new board from Lionel is blown up. The reason that it's probably bad is because I'm sure that board isn't new. That's probably old stock that they've had sitting on a shelf since 2009 when they built this engine. When electrical components sit for long periods of time without use, they do go bad. Don't buy unrun new in-box locomotives that are old, because this is what you get. Sorry for my outburst. That's just one of the big pet peeves of mine is when people buy new in-box that's old and they open it up and they put it on the track and they're like, oh, it doesn't work. It's like, yes, because electronics age, just like everything else. They need electricity to run through them to stay alive. But I'm sure other people have differing opinions than me on that, so we'll leave it at that. Anyway, I'm going to need to call Lionel tomorrow to get this sorted out. I am going to test this board, and by the way, I know that this smoke unit being blown up is not what fried the board, because this chassis and the working smoke unit control board that came out of the engine that is fully functional, originally that engine, if you remember, had the smoke unit that was fried. This smoke unit, the one that is currently shorted and bad, was in this chassis with the working smoke unit control board that still works. So this smoke unit being bad shouldn't have fried that board. So that board was bad from Lionel. I'm going to test this one. Same setup. I'm going to test this one because I know this frame is good, and I know the shell theoretically functions with the exception of smoke unit 3. So when the third unit smoke unit triggers, it should just do nothing. For this one, I am going to put the known 3 smoke unit good shell on it because I want to make sure that if this board is good, I can just leave it in here and close up this engine and call it good. So that's the plan. Yeah, let's go execute. We're going to do this together in real time. Good frame with brand new smoke control board on the fully good shell. Let's fire it up. Okay, that's promising. If I idle it up, nothing triggered. None of the other smoke units are running. If I idle it up again, nothing triggered. I don't know what to say about that. I'm going to let it sit, fully discharge all the capacitors in the engine, power it back up, let it sit for a little bit, recoup itself a little, and try it again. I'm not expecting a different result. I'm just kind of in denial about the fact that I got 2 bad boards from Lionel. So that's what we're gonna do. You won't believe this. Let's fire it up. Didn't do it that time. Last time I did it, this smoke unit flipped on just like it did with the other bad board. Okay. Just to make sure I'm not going crazy, I'm gonna put the known good board back in this engine, test it, and if this board, which is the one that came out of this, if this board blows up, something is definitely wrong inside of this engine that I'm just not taking into account. But this is the good board. This engine worked. This is the good board that came out of it. It should just work. So let's find out. Alright, let's do this together. This is the good board, the board that came out of this engine in the good chassis with the good shell. Let's fire it up. I got 1 smoke unit. Idle it up. I got 2 smoke units. Idle it up. 3 smoke units. So everything in this engine is working as it should, because this board works. Which means that these 2 boards, brand new, from Lionel, well, not brand new, but probably new old stock, from Lionel, are bad. So for right now, I'm just going to put this engine back together. I'm going to build the new smoke unit, put the new fan motor into the shell that has the bad fan motor, and these are going to go away until I hear from Lionel on what exactly they want to do with the fact that they sent me 2 blown boards. So, more to come. Okay. There are 4 screws that are in this bracket that hold on the smoke unit. I'm just pulling out the 2 that go to the shell. And theoretically, this should just come out. There we go. All right. So that's good. Let me pull out these screws so I don't lose them. And unplug the smoke unit. And there we go. So this guy is what we have to replace. So let's crack open or take off this bracket. And then to remove the motor, it's these 2 screws. So you guys can't see. It's this screw over here and this screw. And that will not only release the insulating plate that's on top, but also drop the motor out. So at this point, this is all new territory for me. So I'm going to guess that I need to remove these 3 screws at the end of the blower. And now I have to figure out how to, I've got to separate the blower fan, or this, this blower fan from the motor shaft, because the new motor doesn't have one. So I think I'm just going to go at it with a small flathead screwdriver. And just basically just twist it, trying very hard not to break it. There we go. And then there are 2 more screws in the back there. So go back to my Phillips. So that's 1. And that's 2. And there we go. We have extracted our motor. Now, the new one doesn't come with the connector on it, so I'm going to break out my soldering iron real quick and transfer these leads over. And yeah, that'll be that. But real quick, yeah, that'll line up good. All right, yeah, let me get my soldering iron and transfer that connector over. Okay, I'm using this little pin thing as my alignment for polarity, so that both the old motor and the new motor spin the same direction. All right, let's mount the new motor into the blower chamber. Slip on our blower fan, making sure to leave enough room so that I can get a screwdriver under there again if I need to. And then the 3 screws for the plate. I apologize if you guys can't see much. This is sort of fiddly work, if you can't tell. All right, there we go. Finally got it. So that's 1. This is 2. And that's 3. And now this, making sure that the rubber, little rubber insulator diaphragm thing is still in place. Motor can, need to bend these tabs a little bit to get them out of the way of the connector. Okay, there's 1. And there's 2. All right. Let me should have really bent this the other way, but here we are, trying to fix my work. Okay, I think that'll be good. And now this can run around and plug into there, and then this is our main input from the smoke control board. So now that's good, which, by the way, let's test it. I haven't actually measured this one yet to figure out if this one is good. And seeing as our track record with the 7.6 ohms. Our track record with the smoke unit control board was not too great. Probably not a bad idea to test it. So 7.6 ohms seems fine to me. All right, let's put our bracket back on without losing our screws, preferably. Oh, you guys can't see anything that I am doing. Whoops, sorry. Okay. Bring back our shell, plug in our smoke unit. Fit this thing down into here. And take our 2 teeny little screws. Slot them in. 1, and 2. All right. There we go. So that smoke unit should be good to go. I would test it, but I just put the good unit back in the box because I was done looking at it. So we'll test this when we get new smoke unit boards, but it should be fine. Cool. Okay. Let's put this shell back on the chassis, and then I'll have to get the NS unit out, and that one will be a complete smoke unit rebuild, so that'll be fun. Okay. I have extracted the screws that held on the old leads for the broken smoke element. Yeah, that was not easy because they're nut and bolt things. Here's the new reservoir, part number 6208314-204. Pop this open. Also for the smoke element, this is an 8 ohm heating element. It's 691 RES 8 ohm OHM. And lastly, the batting, which in this case is the batting that was originally supposed to go in here wasn't available, so I got this stuff because this is probably the next best thing. This is 691 SMKP008. I think it's just like their long, like 6-inch or 12-inch batting or whatever the heck it is. But yeah, so that should be all I need to recreate this because I can just reuse the old hardware, which is convenient. So here's the rubber seal. So yeah, I'm gonna start putting this together, and I'll let you guys know when it's assembled. Okay, I got the heating element on. That was a bit of a struggle. I have it aligned so that it's not all the way at the bottom of the chamber. It's pretty close, but again, I don't want it to short just like the old one did on the bottom of the chamber. At least I'm assuming that's what happened to the old one. So, actually, before I go ahead and say that I've actually done the thing, let's measure it. And yep, 8.1 ohms. All right, cool. So heating element's good. I think for the batting, I'm gonna cut this in half. The whole batting won't fit. It just won't. So if I cut it in half and then sort of spiral it in here, pack it down a little bit, should be fine. Looks like a little bird nest. I think that's what we go for. I'm not sure. I've never rebuilt one of these before. This is the first time. So yeah, okay. So now that that's done, this little rubber guy doesn't stay on, so sandwich that, and I have, oh, these are for the bracket. I was gonna say, I'm like, where do these 2 screws come from? Okay, I just need to really get one in here, and then it should hold itself together well enough for me to put the others in. Okay. These smoke units aren't all interchangeable with each other, by the way. Some of them have parts that others don't. So just something to keep in mind as you're working on these. Like for example, this one doesn't have this little filler thing in that slot, whereas I believe the first and second smoke units do. Alright, let's take off our bracket. I'm going to make sure that the wires that go, or the plug that goes to the motor is over this bracket. Let's also not cross-thread it. Is this thing not fully threaded? It goes and then it just stops. Well, we'll make our own threads. So much for not cross-threading it. Alright, hopefully this one's actually like a little bit better. Yeah, no, not really. I don't know if these were tapped, but they're on now, so that's what matters. Alright. Cool. That's convenient. So I'm going to fit this back into the shell, and we'll put the shell back on and fire it up, and I know it's not going to work, but maybe it'll kick on this smoke unit, and I can watch it, you know, make sure that it creates smoke. Oh, I need to prime it. Forgot about that. Yeah, okay, so what I'm going to do to prime it is I'm just going to pop that top cover off again, and I'm just going to basically fill the batting with smoke fluid, or not fill it, but I'm going to put like maybe 8 drops of smoke fluid directly into the batting, and that will make sure that when this fires up for the first time, it doesn't just immediately cook the batting. So here I am about to test it, and I remembered that this is the unit that has the system that's entirely fried and doesn't do anything, if I remember correctly. So, yeah. I guess that kind of puts a stop to that one. Alright, so here's the plan. Today is Sunday. I'm going to call Lionel tomorrow and ask them what they want to do about these boards, and we're going to go from there, because they're either going to want me to send these both of these engines in to have them looked at, which honestly might be preferable at this point, or they're just we're gonna keep playing the back and forth game with the boards possibly being blown up. So I don't think they have any way of testing the boards at their warehouse or wherever they keep them. So they don't have any way of confirming if the boards are good before they send them out to me. I put them in the engine and inevitably find out that they're bad. So that's just the nature of working on old engines like this. Sometimes you get good stuff, sometimes you get bad stuff. It's not Lionel's fault that the parts are just old. So that's the way that it goes. But yeah, so that's the plan, and I'll keep you guys updated. So I called Lionel today, and they have fantastic customer service, despite the fact that they sometimes send you bad parts. When you actually call them and you talk to them, they're really great people. So the 2 boards that they sent me, they're taking back. One of them they're going to exchange for the last board that they have in stock, and the other one they're going to refund me the full price of the board. So that's really nice. Unfortunately, what that means for this project is one of these gensets is not going to have functioning smoke, and unfortunately that is the NS unit here. So I talked with my friend who owns all 3 of these, and he said that he'd rather have both of the UPs fully operational if possible, and then leave the NS just as is, because he doesn't really run the smoke units that often anyway. So this unit, I'm going to verify that it runs good and nothing is binding inside of the shell, since I just really haphazardly threw it back together yesterday because I was done with these things after 4 hours of tinkering with them and trying to make them work. But yeah, so I just need to make sure that this is in a spot where I can return it to him. I'm also going to return the fully functional genset to him, because if the new board from Lionel goes into the broken one and it doesn't fix the problem, because I tested that locomotive with the good board and I know that it will work with a good board, if the board Lionel sends me is bad, then I'm just going to have to pull that board back out and send it back to them anyway. There's no real need to test it in the known good unit, because I know that the genset that I currently have, or I will have at that time, is functional with a good smoke unit control board. So that's the plan. I'm going to inspect these off camera, and next time you guys see me, I should have the last smoke unit control board that Lionel has in stock, and hopefully it works. Okay. It has been many moons since the last time I've recorded this engine. This is the last board from Lionel. Now, they either tested the boards I sent in to make sure they were bad, or they tested this board to make sure it was good. I'm hoping that they did both, but I can't remember if the email said that. So, we're going to crack this open here. And we're going to put this in there. And if this doesn't work, that's it. And if it does work, that's also it. Because there are no more of these boards. So this is make or break for this engine. The fact that I can get to this point where I have now removed the old board in about 2 minutes means that I have worked on this engine way too many times. So fun. Anywho, let's plug this guy in, and we'll see how this works. Seriously hoping that this just does the thing, because I say make or break. There really isn't a bad outcome here. It's not gonna have smoke, but like my friend's not gonna like throw it out or try to sell it or anything like that. Like, he likes this engine too much, and he doesn't really run smoke. It's just like it's a nice to have sort of feature. So yeah. And sorry I can't really show you guys too well exactly what's going on here. Unless you have my eyes, it's kind of difficult to see exactly what I'm looking at. So that's the reason for that. So let's put our Rail Sounds power board in, Rail Sounds card. I need to plug in all the smoke units. Closest goes, I believe, on the bottom. Doesn't really matter because they're all randomly selected anyway from this board. It is interesting. These engines are old enough now that Lionel doesn't have the ability to program these boards anymore. So when I had talked to them, I had asked them, I was just like, is there any chance that you could flash some new programming on it and see if the programming's bad or if it's the hardware that's bad? And they're like, no, we have no idea how to do that. So that was fun. It was a good conversation with them. One of these days I'll learn how to program all the EEPROM and stuff. Alright. I suppose I don't need to put it all the way back together. I shouldn't put it all the way back together, rephrase. But I would like the shell to not be pinching anything. There are so many wires in this thing. I'm sure I've said this many, many times throughout the course of this video, but there are just so many. One of these days I'll get a GoPro that I can mount on my head so like maybe you guys can see what I'm doing, but until then, you guys are sort of stuck with this. Okay. Alrighty. Let's fire it up and see what it does. Okay, I put the smokestacks on so you guys can actually see what's happening. Let's see how this does. Engine 27. Yep. Good. That is bizarre. Now that has me questioning things. But, yeah, if you can't tell, this smoke unit's on. This smoke unit is sorta on. Idle it up. Yeah, that doesn't like strengthen or anything. And that should be all three. And it is not. Whoop. Okay. Somebody who's good at statistics, let me know what the likelihood of that is. The board that's from Lionel has the same problem that this board has. Riddle me that one. Yeah, it is what it is. At this point, this was that was the last board that Lionel had. There aren't third-party companies that make these boards. They just go bad with age, apparently. So this engine is 16 years old, and the more complicated a locomotive is electrically, the more likely stuff is to fail. And this is the weak link on this particular model. There's no way for Lionel to know that when they made the engine 16 years ago, or probably more than that based on the design, like when they probably designed it. But that's just the way it goes. So maybe it has something to do with the way that they were stored. If the ROM chip on here can get wiped by UV light and it was stored out in the sun, or the box was left out in the sun, it could have wiped the programming or semi-wiped the programming on the ROM chip or something like that. Or maybe when the software was originally loaded into it, it just wasn't loaded in correctly. But yeah, it is what it is. So I'm gonna take this board out. I'm going to send it back to Lionel because that's the one they sent me, and I don't want to just send them this board, even though they're both the same issue. So I do want them to have the board that they sent me because that's just the correct thing to do. But yeah, I'll take that out. I'll put this one back in and turn off the smoke unit, and that'll be that for this engine. Alright, it's back together. This is the board that Lionel sent me. I've got that back in its anti-static bag. That'll go back to them. Anyway, let's power it up and I'll show you guys what it's currently doing. This board actually doesn't have the horn, smoke, whistle, steam thing, which I had forgotten about. So if I fire it up here, you can see I've got 1 and 2 running strong. Blow the horn and nothing happens. If I idle it up, that was supposed to be one of the smokestacks. That's the other smokestack, and as you can see, it ain't doing anything. So that's gonna be that. So it's a shame because I really wanted to get that working. So there you have it. That was my attempted repair of these 3 Lionel Vision Line Gensets, and 2 of them were failures, which is neat. All told, I'm over 16 hours into all 3 of these engines, and I only started logging time halfway through it. So yeah. It doesn't sound like a lot of time. It's really only 2, 9 to 5s, but these engines have been on and off my workbench and in my apartment for over 2 months, and it feels like a really long time. So I'm happy to see them go, but I am not happy to see them go in a non-fully operational condition. I did get 1 fully working, and that now belongs to PGA's Train Fanatic. You can go check him out on YouTube. But 2 of them, the smoke units just don't work, and that's the way that it is with some of these old engines. As far as my friend is concerned, these are perfect as is. Like I said, he doesn't really run smoke units in his diesels, and so this was sort of a nice-to-have feature for him. So he's just going to switch it off and call it good. So as far as he's concerned, the die-cast shell on this is what really matters. It adds a lot of weight, adds a lot of pulling power, and it just makes the model feel more substantial. If you want the fully functioning smoke and you don't want to deal with a lot of the problems that I've shown you in this video, take a look at some of the legacy ones that came a little bit later with the plastic shell. I think they're probably a little bit more robust. They've got some newer electronics in them that will probably last a little bit longer. And because they're newer in general, they'll last you a little bit longer. So, yeah. That's the way that it goes. I hope you all learned something from this, watching me work on these Vision Line engines. These things are complicated at their simplest, and parts can fail, and they will fail. When you buy a new Vision Line engine today, don't expect it to last a lifetime. It just won't. The whole point of the Vision Line series is to push the boundaries of what is possible in this hobby, and this was 2009. This is back when Lionel, when they said cutting edge, they meant cutting edge. Their engineers threw everything at these engines, stuff that people didn't even know they wanted. And a lot of stuff has trickled down into a lot of the more consumer-based models, and I hope that in the future with their Vision line products that they can bring in some more I don't want to say gimmicky, but more like unique features for these engines that people don't necessarily want, but it shows how capable their engineering team is. So I hope that's where they go with the Vision line engines, because these things are fantastic, and the concept of them is great, but reliability-wise, that's not what they're built for. They're not built to last forever. They're built to show off what Lionel's capable of, and I think they do a fantastic job of that. So anyway, I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you all learned something. I am CW Hollow One, and have a good day, or maybe good night in your case. See ya.